Hello everyone and welcome to the short video tutorial series of Planet Pro created by Wenji Chow and myself. I'm Mike Shaw. In this video, let's talk about the incredible Sun and the Moon Finder page. This is one of my all-time favorite planet tools and I know that you're going to love it. Let's say you're at a classic camera location with a perfect composition. However, you really want to include the Sun or the Moon to avoid just another shot from a known location. This is when the Sun and Moon Finder feature is perfect. What this tool does is it allows you to easily find all the dates and times when the sun or the moon will appear in your composition, including the exact spot where you want it to be. Simply speaking, it's a tool that allows you to go from a known location to a specific date for your plan. It's for when you know a good camera location and you want to find a date that works. Now, this is a good time to also mention the alignment search feature, a different tool which is part of the Location Explorer toolset. At first glance, it might appear similar to the Sun and the Moon Finder. However, in the Alignment Search tool, the input parameters are the target and the date instead of the target and the location, as for the Sun and the Moon Finder tool. In the Alignment Search tool, once you specify the target and the date, it then finds possible camera locations that could work. So you can think of it as a tool that allows you to go from a date to a location, which is exactly the opposite of the Sun and the Moon Finder feature that goes from a location to a date, and which is what this video is all about. The Alignment Search tool has its own video tutorial, so I'm not going to discuss it further here. But we wanted you to know about both features since they can both be used to plan alignment photos, although the planning logic is different for each of them. Alright, here's a photo from Tunnel View at Yosemite National Park in California. This is a fairly common photo, so let's see if we can find a date when the moon is in the composition to really make it stand out. Let's begin by searching for the tunnel view location. We already have a shared marker at this location. Tap to select it, set it as the camera location. We'll zoom out so that Half Dome is visible. Now we'll tap to select Half Dome, and we'll set it as the scene location. We can switch to the focal length tool. By default, the focal length is 50 millimeters, which is great for this camera location. Now let's open the Virtual VR Viewfinder. Here you go. I just love this. Let's adjust the composition a little. You can also click this 3D button so it'll draw in more details, and good. Now if you compare this VR with the real photo, it's not exactly the same, but the VR is incredibly close and definitely good enough for planning purposes. Now let's switch to the Sun and the Moon Finder page. We'll tap Sunrise. You can choose Moonrise as tunnel view is facing east. For demonstration purposes, I'll choose full moon. Then for the starting date and ending date, I'll choose the next 1 year. It says 67 results, but these results are for all the full moon rises during the next year, which is not exactly what we're looking for. So to limit the results, you can tap to select an elevation angle, let's say 2 degrees. Now you'll notice the green line is at an elevation angle of 2 degrees, but 2 degrees is still too low for this composition. To see the moon, we really need it to be around 8 degrees, so we'll set it to 8 degrees. And now the green line is at 8 degrees, which is above Half Dome. We also need to set the azimuth range, as the opening to the sky is only a small area over here. The center of the open area is around 75 degrees azimuth. Tap the azimuth to set 75 degrees, then for the azimuth range, we can set it to plus or minus 5 degrees. Now you'll see this green area, which is the zone where we want the full moon to appear. I mean, how great is this? The elevation angle is 8 degrees and the azimuth is 75 degrees, plus or minus 5, which is the same as 70 to 80 degrees. Okay, now it just says 5 results. But before we go on, let me show you a much faster and easier way to select the area where you want the moon to appear. First, notice that there's this little hand icon next to the range. Whenever you use Planet, be curious and tap whenever you see something like this that you don't recognize. The icon is now green and it tells you that you can use your finger to drag to define the search area. Okay, well let's give that a try. We'll drag it, and notice while we're dragging, the green area is following our finger. Now make sure the area covers the area you want to see the moon. You can even drag the corner of the area to fine-tune the area's dimensions. Now the elevation angle range and the azimuth range are shown on the top as well. This method is much easier than just typing in the values. Alright, so here are the 9 results with this new area. Let's tap to take a look, and here are all the dates and the times when the full moon will appear in the area we just defined. Let's select the first one to take a look. Here's the full moon. How about that? I think this capability of Planet is nothing short of amazing. How about the next one? Just tap the next arrow button. You can keep tapping to see the results one by one and decide which one you like the best. So now let's study these results a little bit more closely. First, even though we now know we can see the full moon on all these dates within the area we specified, the view on each date will appear different because the sun's elevation angle is different in each case. Let's take a look so you can see what I mean. For example, let's take a look at the fourth result. The sun's elevation angle is negative 20 degrees. We learned in the previous video, number 18, Sun and the Moon, that when the sun is below negative 18 degrees, it's considered dark night. So during dark night, the moon will appear very bright against the nearly completely black foreground. So even if you wanted to capture the moon a little overexposed, Half Dome will still be very dark and it'll just be a silhouette. And even for the ninth result, when the sun is only negative 15 degrees below the horizon, it's also too dark. So let's filter these results by the periods shown here. The best time at this location will be the golden hour, civil twilight, and maybe the early part of the blue hour. Now there are just 4 results, so let's take a look at those. So for the first one, the moon's too far to the left. Same for the second one. And at the third one, the moon is still hidden at the best time. Let's adjust the time so the moon rises above the mountain, but it's over here. I think it's too far over to the right. And the fourth one is also too far over to the right. So after seeing these results that we don't like, we've learned that we're actually a little picky about the moon's position. So instead of having such a large area for the moon's position, let's limit the range to an area right near Half Dome. So let's drag to select the range again to just a small area near Half Dome, and now it says just 1 result. Let's take a look. When the moon rises above Half Dome, the sun's elevation angle is already at negative 7.6 degrees. This is still too low, and so the time is too late, and the moon will again be too bright compared to the foreground. Okay, well if next year won't work, how about the next 5 years? Oh good, now it says 6 results. Let's take a look. The first one we already saw, but the second one looks good. Let's zoom in using a longer lens, maybe 150 millimeters. The moon is here just next to Half Dome. The sun's elevation angle is only negative 0.5 degrees, which is perfect. As long as the sun is above negative 0.83 degrees, we'll see Half Dome in a nice red color. So that's February 23rd, 2024. Let's save that. How about the next one? It's also a good one. The sun's elevation angle is at 2 degrees above the horizon. Half Dome will still be in a red color. When the sun continues to set to negative 0.4 degrees, the moon is here. Half Dome will be a deep red color. Let's zoom out. Maybe we'll use a 100 millimeter lens. Here's the composition. Let's save this one as well. And the next one is also good. Let's zoom in using a 135 millimeter lens. The moon is right here, and the sun's elevation angle is 1.5 degrees. A few minutes later, when the sun is at negative 0.3 degrees, the moon is here. Looks great. Let's save this one as well. And here's the next one. Also a good one. The moon just barely passes by Half Dome. We can even use a 400 millimeter lens to get a shot like this one. A few minutes earlier, the moon is here, and the sun is negative 0.4 degrees when Half Dome will be in the best color. How about the last one? This one's going to be different from the previous ones because it'll be in the blue hour. The moon is still very close to Half Dome, but the light conditions will be totally different from the golden hour shots. But as long as you adjust the exposure correctly, it'll still be a great shot. So to summarize, we now have 5 epic Half Dome full moonrise plans saved through 2027. The camera locations are all at the tunnel view area, and as you can see, it goes from the location to the date. So just think about what we have accomplished for a minute. Out of the next 5 years, or 1,825 nights, we have found the best 5 nights to capture the full moon, perfectly positioned next to Half Dome in Yosemite National Park. None of the other 1,820 nights will work. Another way to say it is that only 0.3% of the nights in the next 5 years will give you this shot. The other 99.7% won't. And that's what the Sun and Moon Finder tool can do for you. Save you years of wasted efforts trying to capture the shot but missing it even by just 1 day. Okay, for our second example, let's use the Eagle Rock Observation Deck in New Jersey. You can search for it to find its location, and we already have it right here. On a clear day, you can see the Manhattan skyline. So we'll set Eagle Rock as the camera location, and let's zoom out on the map to see the New York City downtown. Let's choose the World Trade Center as the scene so that we can browse nearby shared markers. You can do the same once you subscribe to the 3D model feature. Let's sort the markers by height. The first one will be One World Trade Center. Tap it to go back to the map, tap to select it, then set it as the scene location. Tap here to auto-fit both locations. Switch to the distance tool. So you can see here that the distance from the Eagle Rock observation deck to the One World Trade Center is 13.34 miles. Let's use a 300mm lens and take a look using the VR viewfinder. Here you go. I'll search for sunrise. I want the sun to appear over here behind the skyline. Why? Well, if the sun is too high, it'll be too bright. I'd rather have the sun be nice and low so the sunlight will peek in between through the buildings. And now you know that you can use this button to select the range. We'll tap it and drag in the composition to select the area where you want the sun to appear. For the date range, let's select the next 1 year, and we get 8 results. Let's take a look at them. The first result was actually today when we recorded this video. So when you watch this video, the opportunity will already have passed, but that's okay. Once you learn this feature in Planet, you'll have many choices in the future. November 26th also works. You can always tap the results to see all of them. The sun search usually comes in pairs. We have 4 days in November, and then there will also be 4 days in January. If the dates are in October, then there will be dates in February and so forth. So, for the 27th, the sun is a little bit to the right. Can we change it? You bet. It's quite a wide area at the observation deck, so you can press and hold the camera pin to release it, and then drag the camera to the other end of the deck. Now if you look at the VR again, you'll see that the sun has moved slightly towards the center. While we're at this location, let's search for the moon as well. We'll select moonrise. For the moon photos, let's adjust the range to the same height as the One World Trade Center. Here we get 4 results. Let's tap to see them. Oof, none of them are good. They're either in the daytime or they're too late at night. Let's expand the date range to the next 5 years. Now we have 30 results. That's a little bit too many. Let's filter them and we'll choose the blue hour, civil twilight, and maybe nautical twilight. You can also choose daytime or nighttime, or even before or after midnight if you don't want to wake up in the early morning. Now there's only one result on August 8th, 2025, and it happens to be a full moon. Let's tap it to take a look. Whoa! Perfect! The full moon is right on top of the One World Trade Center. The sun is at -1 degrees, which means it's still bright enough. You can use a single shot to capture this scene. And you can further zoom in by using a 600mm lens. Take a look at that. I mean, how great is this? Well, anyway, that's the power of the sun and the moon finder. Okay, well that's it for this video. Thanks for watching and enjoy learning and using Planet.